It's been a long day without you, my friend. And I tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way from where we began. Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. When I see you again. Who knew all the planes we flew, the things we've been through, that I'll be standing right here talking to you about another path. I know we love to hit the road and laugh, but something told me that it wouldn't last. Had to switch up, look at things different, see the bigger picture. Those were the days, hard work forever pays. Now I see you in a better place. How can we not talk about family when family's all that we got? Everything I would do, you were standing there by my side, and now you're gonna be with me for the last ride. It's been a long day without you, my friend. And I tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way from where we began. Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. When I see you again. First you both go out your way and the vibe is feeling strong. It was small, turn to a friendship turn to a bond, and that bond will never be broken. The love will never get lost. And when brotherhood come first, and the line will never be crossed. Established it on our own when that line had to be drawn. When that line is what we reach, so remember me when I'm gone. How can we not talk about family when family's all that we got? Everything I would do, you were standing there by my side, and now you're gonna be with me for the last ride. It's been a long day without you, my friend. And I tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way from where we began. Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. When I see you again. So let the light guide your way. Yeah. Hold every memory as you go. And every road you take will always lead you home. Oh, it's been a long day without you, my friend. But I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way from where we began. Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. When I see you again. It's been a long day without you, my friend. But I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way from where we began. Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. When I see you again.
What's up, party people, the SFL? How you doing tonight? Looks like my timing was a little bit off. Welcome to episode 20 of Axis Live. I'm your host, Dave Axis. Let me know if you can hear me okay in the chat. Hey, I wanted to thank all of you for tuning in, not just tonight, but every night. I really appreciate you guys. Appreciate the support of the show. I love the back and forth in the chat. I love the banter. I love all of that stuff, and I just wanted to thank you guys. We've got another great show for you guys tonight. We had quite the week 6 this weekend with a lot of interesting games. Ace, what's up, buddy? I saw you pop up right now. We have also had quite the week in the SFL as well, and we'll talk more about that later. like I said, we have a great show tonight. We have some fresh faces tonight. But before we get to them, let me tell you what's in store for tonight. First of all, like I said, we have fresh faces. We have the fellas from Epic Esports. There's my guests as well as subbing for the Sim Scouts Inc. guys. I figured they needed a night off. I guess Eagle can't handle having children and being on the show at the same time, so I figured I'd give them a night off and have the Epic Esports guys come on, and hopefully they'll want to be part of the rotation as we go forward. They're going to be doing the week 6, recaps for us. We've also got the announcement, finally, of your week 5 Diva of the Week from the tie-breaking poll results. We had almost 70 people give us their feedback and vote in that poll, so that was great. And then, of course, we have Gunny's Pearls of Wisdoms, like we always do. And then we're going to have a small little tribute to Rich Pratchard near the end of the show before we go into the Axis After Dark part. So just wanted to give you kind of a rundown on what we're planning on doing this evening. And also just want to let you know there's a couple games where we're going to have to wing it. One of the Epic Esports guys is working on the ground in Louisiana with the hurricane situation. He was actually in the green room right now. If he has to leave, he could... Oh, he's back. He just popped back in. Wink. He may or may not make it through the whole show. If not, we've got somebody else that will do his games for him. So we will we'll wing it. All right. Obviously, people's lives in Louisiana are much more important than what we're doing here tonight. So just a little heads up on that as well. All right. Let me get to the chat here. Wink, how many people we got tonight? Looks a little light tonight. Let's see. Pink Lisa, my wife is in the house. Good to see you. Dags, what's up, bro? Yeah, I'm sorry about that, the song, but I just felt it was appropriate. Ben Stone, what's going on? Benji, good to see you. Eagle, I don't know how long you're going to stay in. Let's see if your phone dies. Jeff, glad to have you here. Freddie, good to see you. N Lowe's 301. I'm sure I probably know who you are, but if you can type it in the chat, that would be cool so I know who you are. Doug Britton, Too Cold 49. AJ, what's up? Good to see you. Bob Funk, always in the house. Good to see you too, brother. Hi. What's that? Nope. Thought somebody was in my ear. What else we got? Oh, Charles, good to see you. Knoxville's an evil town. Oh, you're talking out your rear end. Let's see. Dags already said. Andre Crim. Hey, Crim Reaper, you're back. I think I missed you last show. Who else is in here? That's probably about it right now. It's a little... Mac Anthony is in here. He just popped in. I think that's about it. So we're a little light tonight. No big deal. X True Blue X. I think that's Frank. Good to see you, buddy. Glad you're in here too. Oh, Nelson. Well, oh, hey, there you go, buddy. Nelson. I had a feeling that was you, but I didn't want to say it without knowing for sure that was you. In any event, thank you all for tuning in. And now that we know who's actually in this Mamma Jamma tonight, Monica Naka just jumped in. If it hasn't brought up, Vancouver should be home to Pratchard Stadium. May not be real, but it can be never be destroyed. Yeah, I think there's a lot of feelings like that going around right now, Monica Naka. Appreciate the sentiments. All right, let's get this party started. Let's start talking about the Week 6 games. Let me introduce you to the Epic Esports crew. I think there's about 5 or 6 of them actually on the crew. There's 4 of them joining us tonight. First and foremost, let me start with Cameron Curtis. Cameron Curtis kind of heads up the Epic Esports. I'm sure you've seen his tweets and posts in the SFL. Cameron, how you doing tonight, bro? It's good to have you here tonight.
I'm doing great. Thank you, Dave. I'm glad you had me on the show tonight, and I'd like to thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, absolutely. I appreciate you guys coming in. As everybody saw in the league announcements the other day, Epic Esports added the sexiest voice in the SFL and his podcast. Coach Craven is joining us. Coach, what's up?
I don't know about that sexiest part. AJ is still doing shows, so I think I'm probably at least.
Oh, it's definitely your AJ. You guys are in the running all the time for sure. Right. I don't know. Well, can you sing like she can?
No.
Oh,
I'm just going to go with
okay.
no.
All right, I guess
I
AJ
can sing,
wins.
but as a public service, I don't.
All right.
Otherwise, I'm doing great.
Gotcha.
Thanks for having me on.
No worries, bro. Always good to have you. Kevin Say. I'm assuming, Kevin, that I'm pronouncing your last name correctly. It's spelled Seay. Oh, it looks like he just jumped out of the chat. Let me push him back in there real quick. Okay, Kevin, are you with us, bro? Everybody's having technical difficulties tonight. I'm telling you, there's storms everywhere. There's hurricanes. We had a huge thunderstorm here in Knoxville. While Kevin gets his stuff figured out, let me go to Big Dog James. Big Dog James is the guy who may or may not need to leave the show based on what's going on in Louisiana. Yeah, Dags, I think you're right. It's 2020. Really, that's all you have to say about pretty much everything that goes on, right? Lisa, stop lying to everybody and saying that I can sing. We know that's not true. Anyway, Big Game James is in the house, or Big Dog James. Sorry, Big Dog James. How you doing, bro?
Hey, I'm doing fine tonight, man. And first of all, it's an honor to be here on your show with you, and of course with all the other epic sports personalities that are on here. And looking forward to getting this started tonight.
Good, awesome. I'm glad to have all you guys. Are we? Is Kevin back in yet, or is Kevin able to be in? I keep putting him in, but he keeps jumping out. So I don't know if that's a technical issue or he just doesn't really want to talk to me. Kevin, are you with us, bro? Wink, can you help me out with that? See if he's available or not? Because he's going to have like the second game we got to talk about. Anyway, in any event, before we get to those guys, let me just say what a weekend of games. Obviously on Saturday, I personally feel that we just had an outstanding beginning of the weekend with the Lone Star victory over the Gladiators, which by the way was an awesome game. By the way, it just seems like we're in a lot of close games. Sioux Falls took care of business against Tulsa. I think everybody knew that. Atlanta did the same thing against London. Let's see. Portland. Oh my goodness, we're definitely got to talk about Portland tonight, getting their first W. Vancouver at home, man. I did not see that coming. I thought for sure they were gonna beat Mexico City at home. Queen City taking care of Las Vegas. Denver, Arizona gave Denver a little bit of game. Carolina also protecting home field. I'm sure we'll hear from Doyle in the After Dark portion about home field advantage and home field results. Louisiana, I got to be honest, I thought Baltimore was going to take care of business there, but Louisiana stayed strong. And according to Jack's data, which they sent me a graphic about 20 minutes before the show, I wasn't able to put it up, but it has if the season ended today, how the playoffs would break down. And I think St. Louis snuck into that last spot, and Louisiana would actually be the number 1 seed. So there you go. Florida last night, yeah, really took care of Fort Worth. And then Jacksonville on the road. Jacksonville jumped out to that big lead. Charleston made a game of it, but, you know, that's the way it goes. So, Kevin, are you with us now, bro? Can I introduce you real quick before we start in on these games? Can you hear me?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yep, now we can. Okay, so real quick, pronounce your last name for me.
Say, like, what did you say?
What did you say, Kevin? All right, got it. Perfect. All right. All right, well, welcome to the show. Glad to have you here.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And believe it or not, you're going to be kicking us off because you've got the St. Louis Lone Star game, and everybody knows that I'm pretty much a homer anyway, so I'm just going to turn it over to you so you can break down and recap that St. Louis and Lone Star game for us.
All right. You had the Gladiators at 3-2, looking to invade Medal of Honor Field in the 2-3 Lone Star glory. Lone Star took a 10-7 lead into the half, and what was a defensive battle in the first half. Both offenses settled in the second half, and in a close game, LSG was able to hold off the Gladiators in the end. The final score of that game was 17-23. For St. Louis, you had Javier Vasquez, 26 of 44, or 59% clip, with 306 yards and 1 touchdown and 4 interceptions. Cairo Martinez was 18 rushes for 38 yards for 2.1 yard per carry and a touchdown. You had Paul Delavu, 10 receptions for 118 yards. Eagle Mondavi had 7 receptions for 114 yards. And defensively, Mark Gronick had 8 tackles, and Nicholas Warner had 6. For Lone Star, you had Ace Finich, 17 of 23, at a 73% clip for 213 yards with 1 touchdown. Ike McBride carried the ball 23 times for 78 yards for 3.4 yards per carry and a touchdown. Liam Hammer had 4 receptions for 81 yards and a touchdown. And Adam Williams had 4 receptions for 85 yards. And Dave, you had 4 receptions for 43. Defensively for Lone Star, Lincoln Kingseed had 10 tackles. And Freddie Trammell had 10 tackles.
Ooh, Freddie had 10 tackles. Nice. So what you were saying in that is that I averaged a first down per catch. I appreciate you saying that, Kevin, because I knew Eagle was probably going to say something in the chat about him having better stats than me. But
as long as you move the chains.
That's right. That's all that matters. And you know what? At the end of the day, another great game. It was fun playing against St. Louis because we have a lot of friends on that team. And, of course, I'm glad that the result came out for us, obviously. But Ace Fennick said that I'm the best 88 in the league. And I don't know about the best, but, I think he's a little biased. But according to Jack's data, they had Lone Star favored by 3, so we covered. Over under a 51.5, so they were pretty close. On the Who You Got, SFL Nation, actually, we finally squeaked this out. I think when I talked to you guys on Thursday, we were only up or down 1 vote in that. We stretched it out to 13. So 106 to 93. Looks like SFL Nation starts the weekend off with a victory, 1-0, going into Game 2 on Saturday. Let me get that up for you. Which is a better start than we had last week, that's for sure. Tulsa at Sioux Falls, Coach. I don't think anybody was surprised at the result of this. Are you surprised Tulsa put up 17 points in Sioux Falls?
No, not really. I've said a couple of times at the beginning of the year, I said Tulsa could go 8-4, or they could go 4-8. We saw both potential Tulsa teams in this game. Obviously, that first half had a flock of angry sparrows picking everything off and returning it and scoring all their points. And, that was the Sioux Falls. They were who we thought they were, to quote a famous coach. But then in the second half, you saw what Tulsa can do. And they moved the ball pretty well. They didn't turn it over as much in the second half, forced some turnovers of their own. And they closed it up a little bit. They made it respectable. Tulsa's still a team that, you just feel like if they held onto the ball, they'd be really dangerous. But they can't seem to do that. And then it's partly in their philosophy. They spent big money on Gabriel Manning. They've got some other good receivers. They want to throw it deep and often, and the results are what they are. It was a better game in the end than you thought it was going to be, because that halftime score was ugly.
Right. But Tulsa made a little bit of a game of it, actually.
They did. And like I say, we saw what they were capable of doing there. Deacon Nickens had all those interceptions in the first half, and then the second half he had none. Sacked a couple of times. They weren't wildly. I said earlier that Sanzo Robinson needs to get the ball more often. He finished with close to 100 yards again, but only 11 carries. I'd love to see him up close to 20. Yeah. I think if Sanzo starts getting 18 to 20 carries or more, you start seeing Tulsa on the other end of these games.
Yeah, I agree with you. And what's interesting here, and I think I might have mentioned it on Thursday, Sioux Falls only favored by 10 by Jack's data. I actually think I might be quoted as saying I think that should have been at least 14 points. Over under 52.5, really close. And SFL Nation starting off the weekend 2-0, 168 to 35, picking Sioux Falls over Tulsa in the Who You Got. Moving on to game 3, London at Atlanta. Kevin, we're going to go back to you on this. I know we moved some games around because we weren't sure what was going to happen this evening. So sorry you got to jump in there so quick again. 10-point game, but did it look like a 10-point game, or did Atlanta pretty much handle things throughout?
Well, Atlanta, it was a lot closer than it actually, the final score showed. London came to play. They crossed the pond to take on the defending champ Swarm at the Hive. On paper, it looked like the Knights would only be stopping by for a spot of tea, but that's why you play the game, Dave. Atlanta took an early lead, 10-0 lead, but the Knights were able to tie it 13-13 at half. In the second half, the Knights tried to hang, but the Swarm proved to be a little too much, and they took the win. Now, for some of the stats for London, you had Angus McLean, 32 of 45, with 392 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Robert Merrill had 10 carries for 16 yards. Fox Highwind had 7 receptions for 108 yards and a touchdown. Van Kalia had 6 receptions for 115. And Jack Russell and Brandon Ewing each had a pick. And Marcus Reed and Jeff Gagne, Reed had 6 tackles, Gagne had 5. For Atlanta, Bryant Dynasty went 23 for 30 for 387 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 picks. BDG Hollywood had 11 carries for 52 yards, and I still don't understand why they only give him the ball 11 times. With a running back like that, you got to feed him at least 20, take some of the pressure off of Dynasty. But he turned it around and had 10 receptions for 168 yards and 3 touchdowns. Aquinas Shine had 9 tackles, and Moose Papanow had 8.
Another Moose in the house, huh?
Yes.
Seems to be a lot of you guys around here.
Hey, we run together.
Apparently. Yeah, I think Brian Dynasty's just tearing it up. I think he's the go-away leader, head and shoulders above everybody right now for Rookie of the Year. But I think you're right. Eagle and I have talked a lot about it, and I think a couple other guys throughout the season, Frank and Thomas. BDG's just not touching the ball enough this season. You're absolutely right. We were talking the first couple games, then he finally had one game where he touched it a lot, and then now he's back to not touching. At least this time they're winning the game without him touching it. So that's a good thing. Jack's Data had this game at 13.5. So Atlanta did not cover. 55.5, a little low on the over-under by Jack's Data. The Who You Got, 173-29. I think I mentioned on Thursday night, London only had like 20 votes, and it was pretty much all the London team is what I'm guessing. So that was by far the most overwhelming numbers for the Who You Got for week 6. So look at SFL Nation starting off 3-0, trying to make up for all that business last week, I guess. To wrap up the Saturday games, Coach, we're going to end up going back to you. Houston at Portland. Probably the game of the week because of how close it was, and with Portland getting their first win and stuff. What do you got to say about this game?
Well, this is another one of those games that, Portland's been there. They've been right in there in a couple of those losses. In fact, I think there was only the one that was really ugly. Yeah. Wasn't it?
Sioux Falls, I think.
So they've been right there. It feels like there was another one, but I could be wrong. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I've had concussions. But this was a game that it looked like it felt like their offense wasn't moving the ball. I watched this thing and watched the whole game, and it felt like their offense wasn't moving the ball. But then you get in here and you look at the stats. 22 first downs for Portland to 16 for Houston. Time of possession, big one right there, 24 and a half to 18 to basically 19. And that was in Portland's favor as well. And that tells you a lot. Ordinarily, I'm a little old-fashioned. Ordinarily, having a quarterback throwing the ball 55 times, I wouldn't like that a whole lot.
Yeah.
But he did have 2 interceptions, but he had 2 touchdowns, and they were clutch. And our boy Art Vandelay and Connor Weston in particular were clutch in the second half. They may have used up all of their clutch vibe for the rest of the season, but I think they're okay with that. And it wasn't particularly flashy, but Truzman had 17 carries, and he moved the chains a couple of times. He did a couple things he needed to do. It was a little bit better. That average is still pretty low and is not something you can lean on. But in this game, he did just enough to have a little bit of an impact and to help out the other guys. This was a pretty fun game to watch for me. I enjoyed. You always enjoy a comeback like that.
Right.
But I feel like if Portland can minimize the turnovers, they can be in some games. They can win some more the rest of the season. If they do this, Houston's no slouch. They had 132 rushing yards, 211 passing yards. They moved the ball. Kentez had no interceptions. So on paper, it looks like a good game for Houston. Good luck to Portland. Kudos to Portland. Glad you finally got your first win in franchise history. That's pretty amazing. Pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, I like the fact that Jack's data only had Houston favored by 7, so they knew that this was going to be a ball game. Over under a 45.5 wasn't too far. It's within that 10-point margin, like I mentioned. Who you got though? SFL Nation takes our first loss to put us at 3-1 on Saturday, 143-58 in favor of Houston. So 3 times as many votes for Houston, but apparently that doesn't matter because Portland gets the job done, gets their first W. They're in the winners column. So congrats to Jacob and Nelson and Art and all you guys over there at Portland. Connor, congrats on your first win. Happy for you guys. We go from what was probably the game of the week to by far the most emotional game of the week. Kevin, going back to you again, Mexico City at Vancouver, a lot of emotions running high in this game.
Yeah, there really was. Mexico traveled north of the border to take on Vancouver at Canada Field. Both teams took the field with heavy hearts due to the passing last week of Rich. Vancouver took an early 7-0 lead before Mexico scored 10 unanswered. But right before half, with under a minute left, Pepper hit Pratchard for a touchdown.
Amazing.
So they took the lead at half, 14-10. And they ended up going on to win 24-17. Both defenses turned it up a notch in the second half and limited the scoring. For Mexico City, Matt Wilson was 27-29 at a 93% clip for 296 yards with 2 touchdowns. Phoenix Jones had 22 rushes for 64 yards. Laura Horo had rushed a couple of times for a touchdown. Mike Daggs, tight end, had 7 receptions for 122 yards and a touchdown. And Jack Napier had 7 tackles. For Vancouver, Tom Pepper went 32 of 43 at a 74% clip for 301 yards, 2 touchdowns, but unfortunately 2 picks. Robert Redford had 17 carries for 46 yards and 12 receptions for 62 yards. Brett Killian had 7 receptions for 108 yards and a touchdown. And Rich Pratchard had the 5 receptions, 35 yards and a touchdown. And DeAndre Washington had 9 tackles from the linebacker position. At cornerback, Kyler Murray had 6 tackles.
Yeah, I think the most important stat in the stat line on this game is Mexico City 0 turnovers. I mean, that's anytime you have 0 turnovers, you have a chance to be in the game and win a ball game for sure.
Definitely.
I think by far the play of the game and the play of the week was Rich catching that touchdown. I also wanted to mention that I think the tribute that Cam and the crew did for Richard before that game was just extremely moving. It was beautiful. It was just it was like the perfect thing to do for that game. It was very moving, very touching, and I think I speak for everyone to Cam and whoever else put that on that was done extremely well, extremely well. Vancouver was favored 6.5. Obviously, they did not cover. 59.5. That was a really high over under, and I think I might have mentioned that on Thursday that I thought that was a little high, and obviously it was. Here's the thing, though. Who you got? Apparently, Saturday good luck does not roll into Sunday because we took Vancouver 116-81 to drop us to 3-2 overall for the weekend. Moving on to game 2 on Sunday. Going back to you again, Coach. I think this has turned into the Kevin and Coach show. The way we front-loaded this thing, not knowing for sure how what was going to go on with James. So, Coach, Las Vegas at Queen City. I think most people probably thought Queen City would win this game. We talked about Vegas and needing to rush, but neither team had any rushing yards. What was going on? Was it just a defensive battle in this game, or what?
Well, you took away my key point there. I was going to say
my
it's
bad.
easy to. No, I'm kidding. Come on. I was going to say it's easy to bang on Las Vegas and say they need a running game, but you're right. They had 25 rushing yards. Queen City had 40. The time of possession, 28-15. And here's the key point, though. Here's the key point. First downs. I was going to look at that too. 25-16. All of that favored Queen City. In our league, I think having a plus turnover, having fewer turn. I'm messing it up.
That's okay.
Let's just talk about passing the ball. Being positive in your touchdown to interception ratio is a big deal for you, right?
Right.
And it's harder to do. It's a lot harder to do in our league. We have a lot of interceptions. Well, 4-2 touchdown to interception for AJ Caswell. That was a big deal for him. The yardage is quite a bit different. Yes, both of these teams could stand to run the ball. I think in Queen City's case, it's a matter of philosophy. They've got 4 linemen. They've got a second-year running back. Probably still needs some progression, though, because he's transferred over from fullback. And then, Vegas has got a young guy that's getting developed. So you're not going to see a big running total out of these teams. It just went their way. The turnovers were a problem. I was surprised when I went back and looked at the stats how few passes that Rahman actually had in that game. I was expecting it to be up near 50. It was 37. They weren't hanging on to the ball that much, obviously. And you can see that in the first downs and time of possession. They had a lot of 3 and outs, and that's hard to do. And that's one of the things where a running game would help you out. Help you move the chains a little bit, keep that third down conversion shorter distance. Vegas isn't yet able to do that. They'll get there, but they knew they were going to have to grow in that regard. But that ended up being their downfall this week. They just couldn't move the chains.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree with that. The interesting thing about this is I think most people thought Queen City was probably going to be in that upper echelon of teams this season, but based on the Jack's data, like I said before, and I'll go through the whole list once we finish recapping the games, Queen City would only be the 9th seed right now if the playoffs started today, which actually I'm really surprised by that. Queen City was favored by 6, so they definitely covered that. 48.5 was the over-under. You can't really get much closer than that, so they nailed it. We had Queen City 136-57, so we're back in the win column there, SFL Nation, on the Who You Got. Moving on to the crowd play game of the week. I was unable to play this week. I was actually on the road on Sunday, so I had to watch these games afterwards when I got back. I don't know who won any money. I'm assuming it was you, Coach, and Dynasty probably, since you guys win all the money anyway. But all I know is, hey, I didn't finish 11th this time because, you can't lose if you don't play, I guess.
I did win some, but unfortunately not enough.
Not as much as usual.
Not as much as I wanted, yeah.
All right. Crowd play game of the week, Arizona at Denver. Cameron, I caught most of this game. Is Denver who we think they are?
I tell you what, both teams are very respected teams. When they play each other, they're both going to bring it. It's well known throughout the league. Their execution is great. And let's go over some of the stats that's in this game. Denver had 518 total yards, 361 was passing, and 157 was rushing. To Arizona's 380 total yards, 262 was passing, 118 rushing. Although Denver had more yards in every aspect, the time of possession for this game was only 2 minutes apart.
Wow.
So let's go over to some of the defense because, like I said, defensively they both brought it. We'll start with Arizona. Eddie Gage had 9 tackles, 2 assists, and 2 interceptions. Free safety Anthony Wyo also had 9 tackles, 2 assists, and he was also very productive. It was a productive day for the safeties. Defensive tackle Alex Constantine had 2 tackles and a sack. All 3 of those tackles he had was a loss. Defensive tackle EJ DQ also had a tackle and a sack. Between the 2 defensive tackles, along with the rest of the D-line, they didn't allow quarterback Josh Miller to stay comfortable in the pocket. we're going to move to Denver's defense, and they had cornerback Matt Papinow with 7 tackles, a pass deflected, and 2 picks. Strong safety Barry Barkley, he had 3 tackles, 2 passes deflected, and an interception as well. Mr. Statman Raska Pantagria also had an interception, 2 tackles as
Oh,
well.
Rosca, stat man, baby, good for him.
Yep. And Destroyer had 2 tackles and a sack. And then the linebacking team of Richie Weppold and Adam Wiseman both had 8 tackles and a tackle for a loss. So defensively, they brought it. If you do a quarterback comparison, you have Ashley Jackson, who was 30 for 47, 262 yards and a touchdown. She was intercepted 4 times and sacked once. She completed 63% of her passes in comparison to Josh Miller, who was 33 for 50, 262 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, sacked 3 times. He completed 66 of his passes. But I think the difference maker in this game was Denver's offense. Gerard McChesney basically had 150 yards, 2 touchdowns. Irvin, Keel, and Mosley, they all got over 50 yards. Irvin having 77, Keel having 72, Mosley having 66. Bryce Battle got 2 touchdowns. So there was a lot of touchdowns on offense. Even though Denver was only 53% on third down, it didn't matter. They pretty much killed it. And as far as on the Arizona side, there was a lot of picks, but there wasn't a lot of production as far as touchdowns go. Donnie Hands, James Hands. Donnie had 82 yards, James Hands had 65, Tiberius Bovine had 79, and DJ Moses, he had 118 yards on the ground. But the touchdown actually went to Jake McCall. Both quarterbacks got everyone involved in the passing game. Ashley Jackson spread the ball around. Josh Miller used different targets, but overall, basically, Denver's offense.
Cam, I lost you. Denver's offense.
24.
Denver's offense what?
Denver's offense pretty much prevailed in the end, and the final score of that game was Denver 34, Arizona 24.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you have over 500 yards of offense, you're going to be in the ballgame for sure. And I think, we've been talking all year about how efficient AJ has been, and she finally had a game where, she wasn't near perfect. So those games are going to happen. Hiccups happen. It'll be interesting to see how she bounces back next week on that. Denver was favored by 7.5. You can't get much closer than that. Jack's data. Over under a 55.5. That was really close as well. And SFL Nation, we took Denver 153-51, so 3 times as many votes for another victory. We're actually kind of crushing it this week. I guess it's about time after the last few weeks. Moving on from the crowd play game of the week, we go to Chicago at Carolina. This is finally where we're going to get James in here in the house. Not a lot of offense in this game. Not a lot. I mean, Chicago didn't have any turnovers, but they didn't really have a lot of points either, James. What was the big deal in this game? What was the big difference?
Well, I think one of the big things is first of all, Chicago started driving on their first possession. They go down, they go to kick a field goal. The field goal gets blocked. And then on the second possession, they go down, they score a touchdown, but the extra point gets blocked.
Right.
So back to back, it's unheard of, but it happened in that game. I think the other thing is that, Chicago played, they came in 3-1. I think they should have played a little bit better. They did have some turnovers. He did throw 5 interceptions. Oh no, never mind. Sorry, wrong stat sheet. Sorry about that.
Don't give the wrong stats to the wrong people, bro.
Yeah, no. No, but I mean, they did play a good game. It was a good defensive struggle, if anything.
Right.
The only thing that might have turned the tide is under the 2 minutes, Chicago drives. They get down the end zone. They miss 2 pass attempts. On the third pass attempt, it's picked off in the end zone. So that was basically it for them. They ran out of time. They did have a new halfback that started. He had an excellent game. A good breakout game, over 100 yards in the first half, got his first touchdown. And they relied a lot on their running game. A lot on their running game. And Carolina picked up on that and started shutting it down. Except towards the end of the game, Chicago finally found a pass run that worked. and they started moving the ball. It's just the interception ran out of time, but it was a really good defensive struggle to watch these two teams play.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like Carolina is going to have to rely. They're relying on the pass. I don't know what Chicago's going to do right now. I mean, when you look at the stats, I mean, 290 yards of offense, not a lot, but it was very balanced, right, between passing and rushing. So that was good and no turnovers, but you got to be able to put points on the board.
Well, the other thing, too, is that Carolina had that swing pass option, and that was eating Chicago alive. Chicago could not get an answer for that. That's one of the things that Carolina brought in. They'd run that as soon as Chicago would get that stop, then they could go to a run play. And, you know, it was, like I said, it was a good defensive struggle, but when Carolina finally showed up offensively with that slat run or with that pass option, it just changed the ball game for them completely.
Nice. Well, Carolina was favored by 3.5. They covered that. 51.5 the over under. Neither team. They just couldn't score. They weren't even close to that. However, look at SFL Nation. Who you got? 141-58 for Carolina. We're on like some sort of streak or something. Let's see how we wrap up the day. Moving on to the last game of the day, Baltimore, Louisiana. I said that I thought this was actually going to be the game of the week. I thought that Baltimore was going to go in there and take care of business. I believe most of my panelists did as well the other night, Cameron. But Louisiana took care of business, beat a really good Baltimore team, and now, according to Jack's data, sit atop the entire standings as the number 1 seed if the playoffs started today. Cam?
Yeah, and based off their performance, they definitely deserve to be up there right now. Both teams went in at 4-1. And if you look at the total yards, they were both close on total yards. Baltimore with 410, Louisiana with 459. But the big difference in the split in total yards was Baltimore 231 of it passing with 79 rushing, opposed to Louisiana's 234 passing and 225 rushing. Some more around. And we'll get back because I believe that was one of the biggest nightmares that they faced. Quarterback Mike Dazzle, 44 for 49, 331 yards and a touchdown. He was only picked off one time, but he was sacked 4 times. So basically, Louisiana did a good job of getting in his face, but they were faced the whole time. He still completed 69% of his passes. That's what Louisiana did a good job with is only to under the century mark at 82 yards on 36. Ivory Irvin had 19 receptions for 187 yards and was their leading receiver. Lloyd Graham had 60 yards on 3 receptions. Going over the defense of Baltimore, you had Giovanni Bolt with 5 tackles, a pass deflection, but he also took a 97-yard kick return to the house.
Yeah.
That was 7 of Baltimore's 23 points. So in order to overcome Atlanta's 35, they just got more score, and defensively held them out. What Louisiana really did good is Pickler was 18 for 24, 234 yards with 2 touchdowns. He wasn't intercepted. The whole offensive line performed well. He completed 75% of his passes. That's one of the highest of all the games that I looked at. Chase Earl had 6 catches for 119 yards and a touchdown. Lyric Da Vinci had 7 receptions for 88 yards. Some of their defensive guys notable was linebacker Blake Craze had 10 tackles with 2 for a loss and a pass deflection. Luther Gahn had 3 sacks and they were all tackled for a loss. Chuck Diesel was basically running around the field batting passes down all game with 4 passes deflected and 3 tackles. But the big difference maker right here, Reggie Streeter, 30 attempts, 228 yards and 3 touchdowns. But he also had... He was the player of the game.
Cam, we lost you. And he also had what?
He had 3 touchdowns. He had 2 receptions for 24 yards. But the big thing here is he was player of the game. But not only was he player of the game this week, he's been a force all season. He's been player of the game week 1, week 2, week 3. Took a break on week 4. Week 5, he went back to player of the game again. And week 6, that is an impressive stat. Out of 6 games, he was player of the week 5 times.
Wow.
And you combine that with Johnny Pickler's 75% pass completion and no interceptions, and I mean, you stop that team.
Yeah. Would you say Reggie Streeter is the leader for MVP right now?
I definitely would say he's the front runner for MVP. There's no other person close for player of the game and the impacts on the games that he's had to this season, with 5 out of 6 games. The final score of that game was Louisiana 35, Baltimore 23.
Yeah, I think, I'm looking over the stats, and all the stats look great. I mean, passing yards, overall yards. I mean, they barely turned the ball over. Time of possession was almost even. But when I look at it, there's 2 things that stick out. Baltimore only rushing for 79 yards, so that's a problem. But Louisiana with 5 touchdowns to Baltimore's only 1. That is a very efficient Louisiana offense. Jack's data had Louisiana favored by 3. They definitely covered that. I forgot to write down the over-under, so I'm just going to say they got that too. And then we took a loss after winning 3 in a row there, SFL Nation. Who you got? 158-48. We all took Baltimore, and I'm guilty of that too. I think I had Baltimore in that game as well. So what are we? After 2 days, we're 6-3, so that's not terrible. A lot better than we've been doing. Going into the Monday night games, this was a surprise to me, just like the game last week. I don't know if it was the Sunday night or Monday night game last week where Fort Worth blew out, I think it was Sioux Falls. Florida blowing out Fort Worth, I was actually surprised by, James. Did that surprise you as well?
Oh, yeah, just the hype coming into this game. And that was one of the things that was talked about during the game, is that exactly what Florida did to Fort Worth last night is exactly what Fort Worth did to Sioux Falls the week before.
Right.
So that it was kind of shadowing each other. And again, the 5 picks that Florida got off of the quarterback for Fort Worth, that was a big game changer. Also, two scores were taken off the board for Fort Worth after further review. Obviously, the call was overturned, and so that ended up 2 scores off the board. But if you take a look at the offense, the total yards, Fort Worth had 360, and Florida had 305. It was an aerial assault.
Yeah.
Fort Worth came in with 328 yards passing to 258 to Florida. Rushing was 32 for Fort Worth and 47 for Florida. Florida did go to get the win, as we all know, 30-10. And one of the things is that Florida now sits at 3-3, and if you look at their schedule, a lot of the teams are playing coming up next couple weeks are also sitting at 3-3, and they have a good chance of moving up in the standings.
Yeah.
And they do have some. The one thing from last night is, of course, their wide receiver Hackett. He got off to a really slow start last night, and then finally he started catching on. They started moving the ball, and Fort Worth just did not have an answer at all. And it was like they just didn't show up. And the 5 turnovers just was horrendous, considering that the week before they picked 5 off of Sioux Falls.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
And
go ahead and finish. I'm sorry.
And that was one of the big things. Plus, like I said, the 2 scores taken off the board after being overturned by the officials, and I believe both of them were touchdowns. But still, it was a game to watch. Florida just come in and just shut them down.
Yeah. This is definitely an aerial game. I mean, neither team ran the ball either well. 8 turnovers total. That's not great by any means. Time of possession pretty even though, but neither Williams or Doyle just couldn't get it going for some reason. I think we're starting to see that a lot, even with just the last few games we did. With Streeter being the exception, not a lot of big rushing yards this weekend. It doesn't seem. Fort Worth at Florida was a pick'em. Florida took care of that, no problem. Over under 57.5 was a little high. We got back in the win column there, SFL Nation, with the who you got, 121-78 for Florida. And then going into the last game Monday night and the last game of the weekend, Jacksonville at Charleston. I said on Thursday this was going to be the game to watch. I thought it was going to be just fantastic. Jacksonville jumps all over Charleston to begin with, Cam, and then Charleston comes back to make a game of it. This was actually a fun game to watch. What did you think?
Yeah, I thought it was a fun game to watch too. For a while, Jacksonville had a commanding lead, and Charleston just kept coming back, showing them like, "Hey, we're still in this game. Don't forget about us." Going into this game, Jacksonville was 3-2, and Charleston was 2-3. So pretty much, Jacksonville got off, and it was the halftime. They almost had them shut out in the half, and Charleston's like, "No, we're not going to take this." They basically drove all the way to the goal line. But Jacksonville's defense basically stood strong and was able to keep them only to 3, leading into the half at 13-3 for a score. But by halftime, running back for Jacksonville, Jared Willis had 111 yards and a touchdown. So he was off to a great start. What Jacksonville wasn't able to do was really pass the ball. Charleston did a good job on pass defense, keeping Christian no touchdowns for only 105 yards for the whole game. And Kenny Gossett, a premier wide receiver in this league, he was able to get 31 yards on 4.
Wow.
So, I mean, kudos to Charleston on their pass defense. But Jared Willis basically made the difference. In the final end of the game, he had 2 touchdowns. But the biggest difference maker was really the defenses. Charleston's defense played good. They had 9 tackles and 1 interception for strong safety Zach Lay. And Joseph Saboka had 5 tackles and 2 sacks with 2 tackles for a loss. However, Jacksonville's defense was just far more superior for the interceptions. Chidi Drew was intercepted 4 times, 2 by Gooden, 1 by Alex Bond, 1 by Clay Jones, and Taquan Hale only had 1 sack. He was the only sack for the Kings, but they got enough pressure to be able to create those opportunities for those interceptions.
Yeah, I mean...
the final score...
Yeah, go ahead.
Jacksonville 23, Charleston 17.
I mean, if you just look at the yardage stats, you would think Charleston won this game. And, I mean, the turnovers is where, 4 turnovers to 1, that's a huge difference. But Charleston racked up the yardage, bro. Yes,
they definitely did. And one of the other things that stood out to me too was in the second half. There was 4 minutes and 51 seconds on the clock, and Jacksonville was up 16-10, and there was a real questionable call with an onside kick. They still had 3 timeouts left, and I feel if they didn't do the onside kick and they pinned them deep, if they were able to stop them, they would have won that game. Because even though that kick Jackson, they put them in scoring range, they weren't able to stop Jacksonville was able to score.
Yeah, we lost the last thing you said.
Jacksonville was pretty much drive and doing the onside kick with 4 minutes and 51 seconds left on the clock and 3 timeouts. To me, that was a head scratcher. I feel if they were able to hold,
they would have been able to score, and the momentum would have been more on their side. Because even though Jacksonville scored after that.
Yeah. Oh, did we lose you, Cam? Oh, there you go. We got you now.
Yeah, I feel that could have been the difference maker for them, is not doing that onside kick with 4 minutes 51 seconds.
Yeah, that's kind of a lot of time to do an onside kick. I agree with you. Jack's data, had Charleston favored by 3.5. That didn't happen. Over under of 57.5 was a little high, and this ended up being the closest. Who you got? 101-98 for Charleston. So SFL Nation, we end the great Pick'em weekend on a loss to bring us to 7-4 for week 6, which is not too shabby at all. Much better than we've been doing, the last couple weeks. So good for you guys. I don't know how many of those I actually got right, but probably not a lot. Before we get to Gunny here in a couple minutes, I wanted to cover a couple quick things. The injury report that I've been trying to do, it's a little complicated. It's a little hard to get all of them. Like, I got a couple of them to me. Cornerback Iverson Gamble of Arizona torn his Achilles in the second quarter. I heard Logan Jack got hurt in the fourth quarter of the Carolina game. Not sure what the injury was. If anybody has like major injuries, if you guys are able to DM me or Ethan Kai or send him to Wink or somebody, that would help us a lot. There's just so much going on. It's kind of hard to keep track of all this. What's not hard to keep track of, though, is Geraldo Rivera's Harish Watch 2020. We have now completed a half of a season, and Harish is still injury-free. I'd like to know from Jack's data, now with only 6 weeks left, what's the over-under that Harish gets hurt in these last 6 weeks? That's the over-under that I want to see for next week. Anyway, Geraldo Rivera reporting 6 weeks of clean bill of health for Harish and his injuries. Gunny, let me see. We got Gunny. Oh, Gunny's not in there. Hold on. Let me grab Gunny real quick. Gunny, can you hear me, Gunny? Are you ready to rock and roll yet?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So as soon as you are ready, actually, technically, as soon as I'm ready. Hold on a second. Guess I'd be good if I had your song up and ready to go. All right. Gunny, whenever you're ready, I'm ready.
All right. Good evening, SFL Nation. Home teams this week, 8 wins, 3 losses. Through 66 games out of 6 weeks, the score is 49 home wins, 17 away wins. Out of the 22 teams, 16 teams have a record of 3-3 or above. Besides the donation that Gunny makes to Objective Zero for the team of Lone Star Glory, he has also pledged money to Tom Rahman for Pledge. Play It Like a Girl on pledgeit.org. I also did it in the donation of the numbers of his player and his daughter's player, Thomasina. Also, with Gunny's gifted interception with 1 second left in the game, I have made a special donation for Javier Vasquez to a donation of his choice to vetair.org, which it sends veterans of Massachusetts to doctor's appointments and hospital visits. Lastly, Richard Pratchard, number 86, continue catching passes in the clouds. That is all.
Thank you, Gunny. Really appreciate that. This is the portion of the show, excuse me, where we normally talk about the Diva of the Week. We are going to talk about part of it. I know everybody knows that there was a tiebreaker between Jason Williams of Fort Worth, and I'm talking about Week 5 last week, and Ron Cochran. There were 6 nominees. Those 2 tied for first place, so we had kind of a runoff. We ended up having 67 votes, and by I think it was 54%, if I'm not mistaken, to 46%. Ron Cochran is your Diva of the Week this week. Now, Ron wasn't able to be with us, but he said he will try to be here on Thursday. So we'll have a double Diva of the Week thing on Thursday. We'll have him come on and help us out with the pick'ems like we always do, and then he can accept his award. That being said, the other part of the Diva of the Week is everybody at the show, we all talked about it, and we decided that that it was appropriate for all of us to just decide that Richard Pratchard should be the automatic Diva of the Week this week. So there will be no nominees. There won't be any voting. On Thursday, we will talk about Richard. I mean, never mind the fact that he had a touchdown this weekend as well. But we just felt with this situation and how everybody's feeling and how everybody's missing him and the emotions from the weekend that he will just automatically be the Week 6 Diva of the Week. So there will be no voting. We will talk about it on Thursday. And we'll have his picture up there like we always do for the winner. And then if you guys want to talk about him on Access After Dark, and we can do that tonight as well, you guys are more than welcome. To wrap up the show, what I'd really like to do, though, is just do one more last moment of silence for Richard before we go into Access After Dark. And if you're looking at your screens now, just a little something we put together for him in loving memory. I personally did not know Richard. I never got to meet him. Obviously, I saw him on the draft shows. I heard him call games. Um, and everybody that I've heard from and talked to and seen in social media and everywhere else, there's not one single bad word that I've ever heard about Rich Pratchard. So, what I'd like to do is have everybody stop chatting in the chat, and everybody on the panel, we're all going to be quiet. And what I'd like to do is have just, about 30 seconds of a moment of silence and reflection. You guys can see his picture on the Twitch right now on the graphic, and just to have a few seconds just to kind of say a quick prayer for his family and for his friends, and I'd appreciate it if you guys don't chat in the chat or talk on the panel during this time. So I will. I'm actually going to play a little music, and then what I'll do is when I stop the music, it'll be over. Okay. So that'll start now. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate that. And prayers and thoughts and well wishes go out to all of Rich's family and friends. That's pretty much the wrap for the regular show. We have some lower numbers tonight, so I'm not sure how many people are going to want to come in and talk after dark. But I did want to explain before we actually have. If you want to come in, go ahead and @Winkler. I probably should have mentioned that before. If you want to get in on here and either talk about whatever you want to talk about, things that we picked this week, things going on in the SFL. You want to talk about Richard, whatever you'd like to talk about. But first, I wanted to address last week why I canceled the both nights of Access After Dark. Last Tuesday, the Louisiana-Chicago situations were still fresh, emotions running high, and there was still some stuff going on, and I didn't feel it was appropriate for people to start coming and talking on the show while the league was still doing stuff in that regard. And then obviously by Thursday, we had already heard of Rich's passing, and I didn't feel it was appropriate on Thursday night for people to come on yet until Cam and the league had announced his passing. So those are the reasons. I know some people have been asking, and I hadn't really been answering anybody, but so now now it's recorded. You can go back and listen to it again if you want on Twitch. But those are the reasons why I canceled the Access After Dark portions of the show last week, as we had a tough week in the SFL. So hopefully we're trying to bounce back this week. Wink, do we have anybody that wants to come in and talk at all? Or are we going to save all that for Thursday? I don't see any callers in yet. No, it doesn't look like it. It looks like we've got... Oh, we do. We have one person. I didn't see him. I'm sorry. Let's see. Okay, so Dwayne, owner of St. Louis. You've been on the show a few times before. What do you got going on, bro?
Well, thanks, Dave. I just wanted to say for the audience that didn't get to meet Rich that he was a super nice guy. Just very dedicated, friendly guy. I didn't see him the whole time that he was at the second convention we did over in Atlanta, where he didn't have a smile on his face. He had his wife right by his side the whole time, and he actually called our game against Atlanta, and he came up to me afterwards and congratulated us on putting on a good game. We got blown out a little bit, 23-7, but nice and positive, and talking about the moments of the game, and for 5 or 10 minutes, and yeah, I was big into youth football, and he just loved calling football games. So, I still hear his voice in my ears. So, it's a sad time, but for those of us who did get a chance to meet him or know about him, he did definitely touch our lives the short time that we knew him. And I did also kind of get it back to the games for a little bit. I did have a question on your panel that I asked an earlier panel. We're at the midway point of the season. What's everybody's thoughts as far as surprises so far for teams, or moments, surprises as far as teams that are doing bad or good, or who your underdogs are for making the playoffs, who your favorites are, or teams that you think are going to fade the second half. What is everybody's feelings that way?
Let me actually, we can talk about that, but let me do one thing first. Let's keep that on the back burner just for a second, if you don't mind. AJ just popped in. I didn't know if she wanted to say something about Rich or not. So AJ, if you can hear me, go ahead.
Hey everybody. I just want to say Rich was a very good man. I was fortunate enough to meet him at the convention, and I met his wife. We had a good time. As you saw the picture that I took with him, that was like right after he cracked a funny joke, so I couldn't help just smile and cheese at that. It. I hate for things to be overshadowed by. Am I allowed? Well, I don't want to use.
AJ, you cut out just for a second. You hate to what?
I don't. I would hate to use profanity.
Well,
But
well, I guess this is the after dark portion technically, but
okay.
whatever.
Okay.
Do your
Well,
thing,
okay.
girl.
Well,
Do your thing.
I just hate dumb shit that goes on unnecessarily. Um, Late after the tribute, after all of that, there was this little banter that was going on,
Are you
and
talking about the tribute on
everybody,
the game over on the weekend?
yes,
Okay.
after the game, and actually this was like at night,
Mm-hmm.
so I had a problem with members of Chicago and Louisiana going at it for no reason. And well, I mean, there are reasons, but you guys got to keep that under wraps, man. You know, Rich just died. We had a nice tribute. He had his funeral, and they just couldn't keep the dumb shit out of chat.
Right.
So I think everybody has to be a lot more respectful of each other, especially during a time like this.
Yeah, I think I lost you for a second, sweetie.
Hey,
Oh, there
yeah,
you go.
can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
So
think you said especially at a time like this.
yes, especially at a time like this where the league is hurting because they're missing somebody that was detrimental. I mean, that was important.
Yeah, I agree with you. Timing, there's always stuff that we can talk about later. The SFL is not going anywhere. Some of the issues aren't going anywhere necessarily. I think a lot of it is about timing, and I think you're right, AJ. I thought I saw Dags. Dags popped in, and I was trying to see. Dags, are you trying to get into the chat? If you are, just call into the green room, and then we'll move you into the showroom if you're trying to get on. And then I don't know who Too Cool 49 is. Anybody know who Too Cool 49 is? Oh, Dags, he says I'm hiding. I'm just lurking. Okay, bro. I didn't know if you were trying to get in. I want to make sure you knew how to get in if you were trying. Same thing with Too Cool 49. I don't know who you are, but if you're trying to get on, or if anybody's trying to get on, you got to go to the Access Live server, call into the green room, and then Winkler will move you into the the showroom. While we're waiting to see if anybody else wants to come on and talk about Richard, let me address what Dwayne was just saying, and I want to give you guys this data. I just got this like 20 minutes before the show, so I wasn't able to put the graphic up on the show. But according to Jack's data, if the playoffs started today, your number one seed would be the Louisiana Revolution. The number 2 seed would be the Denver Night Wings. The 3 seed would be Baltimore. The 4th seed would be Mexico City. How about that? The 5th seed would be Jacksonville. And those, hold on. And then the 6th seed would be Chicago. The 7th seed would be Sioux Falls, which is a little surprising. The 8th seed would be Vancouver. As I mentioned earlier, number 9 would be Queen City. Arizona would be 10, which is very interesting after being 3-1 and on top of the world just a couple weeks ago. I think they just dropped 2 straight. And then the 11th seed, there's a log jam at 3-3, and I had a little discussion with this about with Hunter. There's a log jam, and it came down to, I think, strength of victory, which puts St. Louis barely over Houston, Florida, Lone Star, Carolina, and Atlanta for that last spot in the playoffs. So, anybody else jump in yet? If not, I'm going to go to the panel, and I'm going to start with Coach. Let me see. Nope, nobody else yet. Hey, Coach, any of those numbers, any of those seedings surprise you? I mean, I'm sure Sioux Falls does, since you're pretty high in Sioux Falls, but any others?
Well, if you'd asked me at the beginning of the season, yes, but the way some of them have been playing, yeah, it sounds about right. It is surprising somewhat, but we know. I think parity is. I think we've hit an age of parity here.
Yeah,
and we're gonna see that for a while, and we may see the top team in the league be a 4-loss team or something, and that could happen easily. It'll be really interesting watching all of those teams at the 3-3 range. What happens there? I will say, out of all of those, Vancouver is one that I sit there and I look at, and I think if they get hot, they're a very, very scary team, and could rocket right up to the top of that thing. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Of course, got half the season to go.
Yeah. Cameron, are you still in here? What about you? Oh, actually, let me say real quick, Coach. That's one thing that Cam Irvine was really talking about in the offseason at the beginning of the season is the parity in this league and how this was going to be the most competitive season ever. And we have 2 teams sitting up at the top with 1 loss, but everybody else 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 losses already halfway through the season. It's crazy.
Well, and I do remember him saying that last season as well. And Atlanta had fantastic seasons, only 2 losses, but there were a lot of other teams that were right behind that with that 3 and 4 loss thing. And I think we saw a preview of what we were going to have there. Atlanta just had a fantastic season last year.
Yeah, we did.
But, I just looking at the schedules for these remaining teams with 1 loss.
Yeah,
there's another loss or 2 lurking in there, pretty easily. You never know. It could go completely their way. That does happen, but there's another couple of losses lurking there for both of those teams.
Yeah. I'm actually. I mean, Atlanta, according to this, looks like they are at the very bottom of the 3-3 tiebreaker, which is a little surprising. Cameron, what do you think about that, Cam? Anything jump out at you on the playoff seedings halfway through the schedule?
No, it seems right to me too, based on what they have there and what's been going on. I definitely agree with Coach as far as there'll be another loss or 2 coming for some of those teams, but some of those top teams right now, they've beaten good teams to get where they are. I think they're pretty much going to stay towards the top. It's just that maybe that kicks them out of it later down the road, but I also think there's going to be some teams on the flip side who had very tough schedules to this point that are going to turn it around, and it'll get a little bit easier.
Yeah, I think Charleston is a good example of that.
Yeah.
Kevin, what say you on this playoff or halfway through the season playoff standings that we have and the log jam that we have at 3-3?
Well, I knew the teams at the top were most likely going to be there because it seems like most of them are always there. But I was talking to Mr. Freeman during the draft and everything, and I told him I believe they're going to be a dark horse for the rest of the season. They came in with a bunch of new people. I played with Javier, at Ottawa, as well as Amy. But with the young group that they brought in, I told them the sky is the limit for them. Just a few more pieces, and within the next year or two, I guarantee that they will most likely, if they can keep them together, they're going to be up at the top over the next few seasons. I can see that happening. And this year, I believe they will make the playoffs again.
Yeah. I think that, and again, it depends on schedules, right? Because Lone Star, my team, is in that hunt with the 3-3, and according to this, we're the third 3-3 team, third team out of the playoffs, and we're getting ready to hit the hard part of our schedule. So depending on how that goes, we could easily go down as quickly as Charleston goes up. And like we all said, and I think Tom or somebody said in the chat, parity is a great thing, right? I think it's better this week or this year when you don't know who's going to beat who week to week as much as you have in the previous season. So I think it's been a great thing. It doesn't look like we have anybody else that's going to chime in, going to call in to Access After Dark, which is fine. I don't know how many people actually thought we were going to do it tonight or not, but it's back. We're doing it. Just to let you know, on Thursday, we will do Rich as the Diva of the Week, and then in the After Dark portion, if people would like to come on and talk about him, like Dwayne and AJ did tonight, that would be great. So if nobody else has anything else, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Thanks for hanging in there. Appreciate everything. My hat's off to hold on, I'm trying to get my goodbye thing up here and I can't find it. See, this is why I need you to do the show, Wink. Epic Esports, Cameron, I think James had to go. Like I mentioned, James is in Louisiana dealing with hurricane stuff. So, but thanks to James and to Cameron and to Coach and to Kevin for coming on. I really appreciate you guys. You guys did a great job. Hope you guys will come back to do more. AJ, thank you so much for popping in, sweetie. And Dwayne, thanks for popping in again. I appreciate it. So, thanks to Wink and Eagle for helping me out with the show as always. I hope you have a glorious night. Can't wait to talk to you guys on Thursday, and I'll see you all at the tees.